At my wedding to Wendy Green, her ex-boyfriend Frank Wilson, who used to be the school bully in our high school days, showed up to crash the ceremony. You know what? She slept with me last night for old time's sake. Frank sneered at me. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a nearby champagne bottle and smashed it over Frank's head, then pinned him down, ready to kill him. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my back. I looked down to see blood spreading across my white tuxedo. Then I heard Wendy crying behind me. "I'm sorry, Ike. I just can't let him go." To save Frank, she had stabbed me in the back. Filled with bitter resentment, I collapsed in a pool of blood. The next moment, I was reborn. Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. My name is Ike Baker, and my father is a murderer. He was an ordinary worker, good to my mom and me, but he loved to drink. When I was 5, he went out drinking and got into an argument with a group at a nearby table. In a fit of rage, he killed someone and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He died of illness in prison just 3 years later. When we went to see his body at the prison, my mom cried and told me, "This is the price of impulsiveness." His moment of anger ruined someone else's life and destroyed ours too. So, from a young age, I learned to be cautious. In primary school, when bullies picked on me, I didn't dare fight back. I knew that even if they were wrong first, my mom would still scold me severely if I retaliated. "Have you forgotten how your father ruined this family? You must endure everything," she would say. Over time, I became extremely cautious, focusing all my energy on studying. Our family wasn't well off. My mom supported us by running a kebab stand. My childhood was dull, filled with homework and extra classes. Mom was afraid I'd become wild if I played too much, ending up like my dad, getting into fights and ruining my life. "Study hard, so that one day everyone will look up to us," she often told me. Wendy Green was like a ray of sunshine in my dreary life. We were childhood neighbors, both from working-class families. She had a scholarly air about her, reminiscent of a Southern English rose. Our families were close because my dad and her father had been workmates. I liked Wendy from an early age. Though I had nothing, I always gave her my best within my means. I'd save my lunch money to buy her dolls, help her revise, and do her chores. If she ever got upset, I'd immediately apologize and treat her like a princess. "Perhaps we'll be in-laws someday?" Wendy's dad once said to my mom over dinner, after having a few too many. My mom replied, "The children are still young. Let him get into a top university first and make something of himself. Otherwise, Wendy would be stuck in a miserable life with him." Hearing this, Wendy shyly lowered her head, while I silently vowed to succeed and give Wendy a perfect future. We attended the same primary and secondary schools. Before the GCSE exams, I tutored her for 3 months. In the end, we both got into the same prestigious sixth form college, though we were in different classes. Back then, I often daydreamed about Wendy wearing a white wedding dress for me one day. It would have been the happiest moment of my life. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. The wheels of destiny began to turn in a new direction during our first year of A-levels. A transfer student named Frank Wilson joined our school. He was handsome with an air of arrogance. He never wore the school uniform, opting instead for denim clothes and styled hair. Rumor had it that his mother was a businesswoman and his stepfather was a local council leader. Being from a blended family, they were quite lenient with him, which only fueled his domineering personality. Frank had previously attended another school but was expelled for seriously injuring someone in a fight. He ended up at our school. On his very first day, he started picking fights, but due to his family's wealth and influence, even the headmaster had to tread carefully around him. He was assigned to Wendy's class next door to mine. At first, when I heard about him, I thought he was just another arrogant rich kid and didn't pay much attention, as long as he didn't bother me. But about a week later, to my surprise, he started picking on me. I was on the school field when 3 troublemakers from their class suddenly knocked me down. Then Frank Wilson came over with a malicious grin and said, "So you're the top student in our year? I hear you're quite popular." I was furious and wanted to fight back, but I remembered my mum's years of advice, endure. So, I forced a smile and said, I'm not popular. I need to get to class, don't mess about. To my surprise, Frank didn't back off. Instead, he laughed loudly. Not popular? Let me heat things up for you. With that, he took out a thermos flask full of hot water and started pouring it on me. It was summer, and I was wearing a short-sleeved shirt. My skin turned red from the scalding water, and I almost cried out in pain. But seeing the gleeful expressions on Frank and his gang's faces, as if they were waiting for their prey to scream and moan, I bit my tongue and didn't make a sound. Instead, I glared at him fiercely. Quite tough, aren't you? Doesn't it hurt? Suppressing my anger, I said, It doesn't hurt. Stop messing about. Then call me Big Frank. I wanted to resist again, but remembering what happened to my dad years ago, I took a deep breath and said, Big Frank. Haha, good. You're off the hook today, he said, leaving with his 3 lackeys. As they walked away, I heard them say, Looks like this kid can take quite a bit. Maybe he's got prosthetic limbs. Haha. After they left, I quickly went to the washroom to rinse my face and arms. The cold water on my body gave me a sense of relief and made me more alert. Looking at myself in the mirror, I said, These thugs won't last long. Endure. I can't let Mum and Wendy down. But to my surprise, a few days later, Frank came to bother me again. It was during lunch break, and I was eating at a small restaurant near the school gate when he and his 3 lackeys spotted me. They called me over and told me to give them my school uniform. I knew they were just messing with me. Frank himself never wore the uniform and hardly attended classes. Big Frank, stop playing around. The officials are coming for an inspection soon. That day, the mayor was coming to inspect the school, and there would be a TV crew filming and interviewing. The school required all of us to wear our uniforms. The mayor? He's nothing. My dad often has dinner with him, he's just an old fogey. I'll ask you one more time, are you taking it off or not? If you don't, I'll beat you up now and every time I see you after this. Faced with this unreasonable demand, my heart was racing. I saw some metal skewers left from kebabs nearby and thought about stabbing this bastard. But just as I was about to act, I remembered that my mom also wakes up at 4 every morning to thread chicken wings, fresh ground meat, and vegetable rolls onto these skewers before setting up her stall to sell them. And all of this was for my tuition fees and my future. I took a deep breath and said, All right, I'll take it off. Frank, smoking a cigarette, laughed loudly and said to his 3 lackeys, I told you this kid is interesting. He's clearly a coward, but he always hesitates. What, are you having an internal struggle? I took off my school uniform and returned to school with my head down. Sure enough, when the mayor came to inspect and toured the classrooms, I was the only one wearing just a vest, standing out like a sore thumb. I got a scolding from the teacher. Fortunately, because of my good grades, the teacher only criticized me a bit without giving me any formal punishment. At the time, I didn't understand why Frank was treating me like this. Was it just because I was a good student? Being good at studies isn't a crime, and besides, he hardly ever came to school. So what did it matter to him whether someone's grades were good or bad? But later I understood. It was because of Wendy Green. One evening, Wendy Green was on cleaning duty, so I stayed after school to help her in her classroom. By the time we left, there were hardly any students left on campus. Suddenly, 3 lads blocked our path. They were Frank Wilson's cronies. The 3 of them started taunting us. Well, if it isn't the top student and our class beauty, why so late leaving? Were you 2 up to no good in the classroom? I bet they were. This bloke looks quiet, but he's probably a right perv. Our class beauty's got a nice little chest on her. I'd like to give it a proper inspection. Ha 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 ha. Shut your bloody mouths. I couldn't hold back anymore and shouted at the 3 of them. I could tolerate a lot for the sake of getting by, but insulting Wendy was crossing the line. However, I was no match for the 3 of them. They were experienced thugs, and I could barely handle one. In no time, I was knocked down, with one of the fat lads stepping on my face. I let out a roar. I'll kill you 3 bastards. But I had just been beaten up, and my whole body was in excruciating pain. Couldn't break free. Wendy stood by, terrified. Oh? Swearing now, are we? I thought top students were supposed to be proper gentlemen. Yeah, proper kids can't be their own flesh and blood. The 3 of them snickered again. How about this? Bark like a dog, and I'll let you go, said the fat one, stepping on me, laughing. Sod off. I glared at them with bloodshot eyes. If I had a knife in my hand right now, I genuinely want to kill them. Well then, I guess I'll have to feel up our class beauty's chest. I can tell fortunes by touching breasts, you know. I'll check her love life. As he said this, he made a move to grab Wendy, who backed away in fear but was caught by the other 2, unable to move. I couldn't let them bully Wendy. In despair, I gave in. If I bark like a dog, will you leave Wendy alone? That's right, go on then. Tears streaming down my face, I started, woof. Just as I barked once, I heard Frank Wilson's voice coming from the other direction. What the bloody hell are you 3 doing? He ran over and smacked each of them on the back of the head. The 3 looked terrified when they saw Frank. Frank, mate, we were just having a laugh with these 2. A laugh? Is this your idea of a bloody laugh? How many times have I told you? Fighting's fine, but don't mess with girls. Wendy's in our class. For Christ's sake. You don't shit where you eat. Frank lit a cigarette and coldly pointed at each of them in turn. If I catch you at it again, I'll do you in myself. Yes, yes, of course. Now piss off. Hearing Frank's words, the 3 ran off quickly. Frank then helped me up. Sorry about that, mate. We had a bit of a misunderstanding before. These 3 tossers thought they were being clever, giving you trouble. I glared at him fiercely. I knew this was all his doing. He then turned to apologize to Wendy. I'm really sorry about this. They won't bother you again. We're in the same class, and even though I don't show up much, I look out for my classmates. If you ever need anything, just let me know. Wendy nodded hesitantly. My blood was boiling, and I wanted to punch him, but as soon as I raised my arm, I felt pain throughout my body. Frank noticed my movement and quickly said, Come on, mate. Don't be like that. This has nothing to do with me. It was just these 3 idiots mucking about. Tell you what, I'll treat you both to dinner sometime. I like making friends with smart people. He waved at Wendy and me. We'll talk later. I've got a drinking session to get to. Ignoring my own pain, I quickly asked Wendy if she was all right and if she had been scared. Wendy stared at my face. You've got a shoe print on your face. I hurriedly wiped it with my sleeve, then said to Wendy, Let's get out of here quickly. Don't hang around. Those bastards will get what's coming to them, including Frank. Wendy didn't say anything but walked away with me. I noticed something odd in her expression, but I didn't have the courage to ask her why, because I knew, no matter what excuses or reasons I had, being forced to bark like a dog in front of the woman I loved most was an enormous collapse of dignity. Even if the shoe print on my face could be washed away, that woof might be something I could never erase for the rest of my life. After that, Wendy and I still seemed to be together, but there was a rift between us. She started saying nice things about Frank, mentioning that when she went out for lunch, some hooligans from outside school harassed her, but Frank and his mates chased them off. She thought that although Frank wasn't keen on studying, he was loyal and had influence, and maybe he wasn't as bad as we thought. Hearing this, I was indeed angry. How could Wendy be so blind about people? Last time it was him who staged that scene, and it's the same this time. How can you still think this scum of society isn't that bad? How can you be so blind about people? But after saying this, I suddenly felt my tone was too harsh. Indeed, it was my own incompetence and tolerance that had caused Wendy to suffer. I shouldn't lose my temper. So I apologized immediately, saying to Wendy, You see, he's got a bunch of dodgy mates. It's actually because his stepdad is rich and powerful. I promise you, Wendy, I'll study hard. If I can't be born into wealth or power, I'll make my own way. I'll take you to live in a mansion, drive nice cars, travel the world. Wendy looked at me, seeming a bit hesitant, but finally nodded. But unexpectedly, Wendy still ended up with Frank in the end. Due to the demolition of old houses, Wendy and I were no longer neighbors, so she always went home by herself in the evenings. For a while, she always made excuses about having to do classroom duties, telling me to go home early. I didn't think much of it at first, but one day my classmate Jeffrey came to tell me, "Have you heard about Wendy?" Jeffrey was my best friend at school, also my deskmate. Although his grades weren't good, he was very loyal. "What about her?" I was clueless. "You don't know yet." Jeffrey hesitated for a moment. I thought something bad had happened to Wendy and immediately pressed for details. Jeffrey thought for a bit, then said, "She was caught snogging Frank in the corridor today by the teacher from the moral education department. She just got a telling off." I was shocked, completely unable to believe this was true. But the next second, my heart died. Because I heard a broadcast from the school's PA system, it was Frank's voice. "This is Frank Wilson. From now on, Wendy Green from year 11th class 5 is my girl. Anyone who dares to bully her is asking for trouble with me." I went mad and rushed straight to the broadcast room, only to find Frank with his arm around Wendy, even kissing her on the cheek. "You too." I was furious and went to hit Frank. Frank's cronies held me back, and I shouted, "Frank, you bastard! How can Wendy go to school after you've ruined her reputation like this?" Frank laughed, hugging Wendy. "With me protecting her, she'll feel safer at school. You're just a scoundrel, a thug. You'll get what's coming to you," I yelled. Hearing me curse at him like this, Frank's expression changed. He sneered. "Who do you think you are? My dad's the deputy mayor? What's your dad?" Wendy told me, "Your dad's a murderer." I never thought Wendy would tell Frank even the most humiliating thing in my heart. I felt even more enraged, and somehow found the strength to break free from 3 people, landing a punch right on Frank's nose. Frank's nose started bleeding immediately. He didn't expect me to be so tough and flew into a rage. "You dare hit me? You son of a damn," one of his cronies said. "Frank, let's take him out of school and cripple him." Just then, Wendy helped Frank wipe his nosebleed and said, "Please don't do this. Okay? After all, Ike is my childhood friend. He used to take care of me." Her childhood friend took care of her. I didn't know whether to be angry at her for being so blind, finding a scheming good-for-nothing scumbag, or to thank her for shielding me from harm. Frank was good at sweet-talking Wendy, immediately saying, "I'll take your words to heart. Let him go then. Ike, don't mess with me in the future." With that, he threw the tissue Wendy had used to wipe his nosebleed in my face, put his arm around Wendy, and left with his cronies. I stood numbly at the entrance of the school radio station, muttering to myself, "Why did this happen? Why would Wendy fall for such a beast?" After that incident, Wendy Green indeed received special protection. Not only did no student dare to bully her, but when a teacher criticized her for not doing her homework properly, that same day after school, the teacher was beaten up by a group of local thugs. It was clear who was behind this without even asking. Reportedly, Frank Wilson's mother came to the school to smooth things over, directly offering money to settle the matter privately. The teacher, fearing Frank's stepfather's connections in the district council, had no choice but to swallow his pride and never dared to say anything about Wendy again. Wendy started dyeing her hair, skipping classes, and smoking. The few times I saw her from afar, I couldn't believe that this rough-looking girl was once the quiet, gentle princess in my heart. As for me, I buried myself in old books, channeling my grief and anger into studying, constantly solving practice problems. I firmly believed that people like Frank Wilson would face karma one day, and that I would have a much better life than him. Unexpectedly, in our final year of 6th form, Wendy came back into my life. One night, Wendy came to find me, her face bruised and swollen. She told me she was pregnant. I was stunned for a moment. Actually, this wasn't surprising, but where did all her injuries come from? Wendy explained that after Frank's passion had cooled, he treated her very badly. Recently, she found out she was pregnant and wanted to discuss it with Frank, only to discover him in a hotel room with another woman. In a fit of anger, she berated Frank, which resulted in him beating her. I felt both pity and disgust. Didn't you know that those people who harassed you back then were all sent by him? How could you not see through such a simple trick? Why did you still get together with him? Wendy burst into tears. I knew, but I think I had a bit of Stockholm syndrome then. I always thought someone like him would settle down for me, would protect me. She then muttered to herself, "Don't bother with me anymore. I'll just fend for myself." With that, she turned to leave. Seeing her walk away, I found myself softening, despite my better judgment. I rushed to her side and embraced her. Who hasn't made mistakes? I can't guarantee I won't make mistakes in my life either. As long as you can see his true nature now, I'm willing to work with you to overcome this shadow completely. I took her to get an abortion, promising to be her safety net and treat her the same as before. Finally, she regained her former smile. After that, I started tutoring Wendy. Although it was last-minute preparation, she managed to get into a university. I, on the other hand, went to the University of Oxford. After graduation, I joined a big tech company, worked hard, and pushed myself. In less than 3 years, I became a middle manager with an annual salary of £80,000. I also took out a loan to buy a large flat in the city center and bought a car, living the life of a middle-class professional. Marry me. Let me take care of you for the rest of our lives. When I felt I could finally provide Wendy with happiness, I made up my mind. I bought a diamond ring and made the most sincere and solemn proposal to Wendy. Seeing her surprised and joyful expression, for a moment, I felt that Frank Wilson had been completely erased from my life experiences. The next day, I registered with Wendy Green at the register office, and we smoothly entered the halls of matrimony. On our wedding day, my emotions were a jumble. Due to the lingering resentment from that humiliating period in secondary school, I didn't invite any of my old classmates to the wedding, except for Jeffrey Carter, who served as my best man. However, unexpectedly, another former classmate showed up at the wedding venue. Frank Wilson. Just as the officiant asked, "Miss Wendy Green, do you take Mr. Ike Baker to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, for better or for worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do you part?" Frank suddenly burst into the hall. "She doesn't," he shouted. Everyone present, including my mother, Wendy's parents, and guests from both families, were shocked. I stood at the altar, my eyes blazing with fury. This bastard Frank. After 10 years, he dared to show up in my life again. Before anyone else could react, I had already leapt off the stage and started grappling with him. This time, I didn't hold back. Within moments, I had him bleeding from the nose. Thanks to years of consistent exercise and fitness training, I was in good shape, while Frank looked as if he'd been drained by a life of excess. He was no match for me. As people around us tried to break up the fight, Frank seized the opportunity to stand up and whispered in my ear, "Want to know why I'm here? I've been in touch with her for 2 years now, as friends with benefits. Just last night, we had one last fling before the wedding. She said she was ready to settle down with you. But today, I suddenly realized I couldn't let her go. Frank, you bloody wanker." I lost all reason. I didn't even want to question whether what he said was true or false. I pinned him down and grabbed a nearby bottle, smashing it against his head. Once, twice, 3 times. I hit him hard 3 times, watching blood seep from his forehead. But he still looked at me with a mocking expression. I was about to strike again with all my might. Suddenly, I felt a sharp, cold pain in my back, followed by an agonizing sting. I turned around to see a panic-stricken Wendy, holding a knife, her white wedding dress now stained red with my blood. Frank had told the truth. She was willing to kill me for him. "I'm sorry, I just can't let him go," she stammered. Suddenly, I wasn't angry anymore. I found it hard to breathe, but strangely, I smiled. I swayed a bit, opened my mouth to say something, but no words came out. Then I collapsed. I died. I died, my eyes wide open even in death. The first complete release of my life ended in utter humiliation. My soul floated above, witnessing the chaos at the wedding venue. My mother had fainted from crying, and Wendy Green's parents were in a state of panic. Soon after, the police arrived and confirmed my death. However, after examining the scene, they determined that since I had the motive and intention to kill, Wendy's stabbing me was considered self-defense. Although she was helping an outsider, the CCTV footage showed that I was indeed about to beat Frank Wilson to death. Therefore, Wendy's actions were deemed heroic intervention. In the heat of the moment, she stabbed me once, resulting in my death. This wasn't considered excessive self-defense. One could say her intentions were good, but I was the one who messed up the execution. At this point, I felt myself floating in the clouds when suddenly a mirror appeared before me. In the mirror was another version of myself. Though we looked identical, his demeanor was incredibly frivolous, and his eyes were filled with a deep malice, as if harboring an unresolvable grudge and melancholy. I asked, "Who are you?" The person in the mirror replied, "I'm you, of course. How can you be me? I'm the other personality you've suppressed for 20 years. I've existed within you since primary school when you first chose to swallow your pride after being bullied. All these years, I've seen enough of your foolishness." My foolishness? Yes, you thought you had to endure everything, always thinking long-term. You endured for the future, for the woman you loved, for your family. And what's the result? I was speechless. The me in the mirror let out a piercing laugh. Haha. Let me tell you the answer. You've failed at all three. First, you're dead, so obviously there's no future. Second, the woman you loved is a slag. She stabbed you and is now off with Frank Wilson. Oh, and since you were already registered for marriage, Frank will likely get a share of your house too. Lastly, your family? Did you see how your mum cried? She fainted and might have a stroke or a heart attack. I couldn't bear it anymore and shouted, "Shut up!" But he just smirked and said, "If you had another chance, what would you do?" I didn't respond, just stared at that version of me in the mirror. Gradually, I felt us merging into one. His expression seemed to become mine, and his malice transformed into my own. The mirror vanished, but his voice still echoed in my ears. "Let's do this again, and don't embarrass me this time." My ears were ringing, and everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. And the scene before me was the first time I encountered Frank Wilson on the school grounds. A sharp pain shot through my arm. Frank Wilson was pouring hot water on me, grinning as he asked if I would call him Big Frank now. I endured the agony, staring at him coldly, my eyes filled with endless hatred as if they could kill him on the spot. Frank wasn't a fool. He keenly sensed my emotions but didn't stop. Instead, he tried to intimidate me further. I said coldly, "Don't push me." One of Frank's cronies laughed. "What if we do push you? What can you do about it?" "Push me? Murder. Murder." I screamed like a stuck pig, my voice piercing through the entire schoolyard. Although the students were all too afraid of Frank to play the hero, their curiosity to watch drama unfold was as strong as ever. In less than half a minute, everyone in the schoolyard had gathered around us. I continued to roll on the ground, shouting, "Stop scalding me with hot water. It hurts." My voice was so shrill it could have burst eardrums. Frank, though a seasoned bully, had never encountered someone as shameless as me. He was momentarily stunned. "I've already stopped pouring. What the hell are you on about?" I replied, "It still hurts. I can't take it anymore. I'm suffocating, ugh." I pretended to gag and retch. One of his sidekicks, fearing I might vomit on him, quickly advised, "Frank, mate, this guy seems mental. Let's scarper, there are too many people here. It might get messy." Frank gave me a vicious kick. "You just wait, you little shit. What are you all gawking at? Piss off." I laughed inwardly. This was the amateur mistake of bullies. School bullying often succeeds partly because the victims feel too ashamed to speak up or make it public. The bullied feel embarrassed, which in a way helps cover for the bullies. So naturally, the bullies push it further. Then, Completely disregarding the onlookers, I went straight to the water fountain to clean up. My arm was red and swollen from the burn, but this time I felt no shame, because I had already decided how I would live the rest of my life. I stared at my arm, muttering, "This injury, I'll repay it tenfold." That evening, Wendy Green expressed her sympathy and asked why I had provoked Frank. I laughed and said, "You can't avoid thugs. I was just unlucky. Besides, his family's rich and powerful. I'm just a nobody. I can't fight back, so I had to lose face." I meant every word of that, though, because Frank's family indeed had both power and money, while mine was just an ordinary household. To deal with Frank, I needed to accomplish two things. First, I needed to become wealthy myself. Second, I needed to make Frank's family lose their money or influence. I'd start with the first task. I was grateful for this chance at rebirth, especially at this particular moment, 2011, because this was the year when cryptocurrency had just emerged, worth about $1 per coin. As a future enthusiast of financial investment, I clearly remembered that next year, its value would skyrocket at least 500 times. I knew my mom had saved some gold jewelry for me, meant for my future daughter-in-law, hidden behind the bookshelf at home. I went straight to find it and opened the box. Inside were gold bracelets, earrings, and necklaces. They weren't large, but they were pure gold and a complete set. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but feel that even though Mum had always educated me in the wrong way, she truly cared for me. She even thought about getting these jewels for my future wife. Looking at the jeweler box, I smiled. "Mum, these are the traditional wedding gold you saved for my future wife. This time, I'm going to have to kill off your future daughter-in-law. Let's consider this as the funeral money for her instead." I found a jeweler's and sold all the pieces by weight, making a total of £5,000. Then I nicked my mum's ID and opened a cryptocurrency account, investing everything in it. By 2023, these cryptocurrencies could increase 500-fold, giving me £2.5 million. I suddenly felt relieved, thinking this must be the purpose of my rebirth. To make up for all those years of suppressed personality in one go. To experience all the good things I should have experienced. Of course, this was just the beginning, so I didn't have much to play with. The only change was that I started skiving off school to go to the internet cafe with Jeffrey Carter. Because cramming for exams was no longer an obsession for me. It wasn't that I'd given up, but rather I'd learned to optimize my time reasonably. How could studying be more important than having fun? Ridiculous. I thought carefully about it. In my previous life, I'd never been to an internet cafe during my school days, because I felt guilty. Back then, whenever I slacked off, my mum's tearful accusations would appear in my head, saying I was letting down all her years of nurturing and all her hard work running the fish and chip shop. But in my previous life, I'd already proved with my own efforts that studying hard and getting married didn't even guarantee keeping my life. I'd already completely let her down. How could I let her down anymore? Jeffrey, of course, knew nothing of my complex inner thoughts and was just surprised by my change. Not only did I go to the internet cafe with him, but I even paid for the internet fees and drinks every time. This wasn't normal for a poor student, especially since I used to be known for being extremely frugal, not even daring to order large portions for lunch. But this time, because I didn't have to consider buying any gifts for Wendy Green anymore, I naturally became more generous. "Ike, why are you suddenly being so nice to me?" Jeffrey asked. "Because you cried," I answered casually while playing the game. I clearly remembered that day when I was stabbed to death by Wendy. My mum had already fainted, and only Jeffrey was left, holding my corpse and wailing to the heavens. It's a rare experience to know who cares about you after you die. Of course, Jeffrey couldn't understand any of this. "Before, you seemed like a bookworm," he said. "And now?" I asked. "Like a nutter. You're talking nonsense. Nothing you say makes sense." I laughed. "From now on, if I have a bite to eat, you'll have a bite too. Your most suitable career is as a bodyguard. So stop wasting time on solving maths problems." As we were about to leave the internet cafe, I surprisingly saw Frank Wilson. He was sitting there playing games. Frank wasn't with his gang today, and seeing me with Jeffrey, he thought I was there for revenge. "What do you want?" he frowned. I could see he was a bit nervous but trying to act tough. But I didn't make a move. Instead, I sat on the edge of his seat and put my arm around him, saying, "Little bro, I don't care if you're Big Frank or Flying Wilson out there, but behave yourself in front of me. You think you can scare me? Let me tell you, I'm better at studying than you, smarter than you, and even my girlfriend is prettier than those chavs of yours. Give it a rest." Frank had never been humiliated like this before. He was about to hit me when he heard this, but I anticipated his move. With the advantage of my position, I quickly pinned him down on the keyboard. "I've got a knife in my pocket, but I don't want to cause trouble today. Be a good boy from now on, or I'll beat you up every time I see you." Seeing me suddenly become so fierce, and considering he was alone today while Jeffrey and I outnumbered him, Frank didn't dare say anything. He just glared at me fiercely. I ignored him and got up to leave. Once outside, Jeffrey was a bit nervous and said, "Have you made friends with some gangsters or something?" "No," I replied. "Then has your mum suddenly become rich and is sending you to study abroad?" "Not that either." Jeffrey was shocked. "Then why the hell did you dare to provoke Frank? I think you're really mental." I shrugged indifferently. "I just want him to take revenge on me in the most cruel way possible." Sure enough, the next day, while I was helping Wendy Green with her classroom duties, Frank Wilson started his old tricks again. Same old recipe, same old taste. Only this time, he was using this tactic earlier than before, which suited me just fine. As before, 3 of his cronies came to harass me and tease Wendy. It was the exact same routine as in my previous life. Seeing these 3 appear in the evening, I sighed inwardly. Once a chav, always a chav. They can only think as far as their habits allow. But this time, when the 3 came to provoke us, my attitude was completely different. Well, if it isn't the top student and our class beauty, why are you leaving so late? Were you up to no good in the classroom?" I bet they were. This quiet one looks like a right perv. Our class beauty's got a nice pair on her. Looks like she's been around. I'd like to have a closer look. Ha 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 ha. All right, same old lines. Now the pressure was on me. Wendy looked at me, her face flushed with embarrassment, not knowing what to do. I said very candidly, "Please, gentlemen, spare us both. I'm bowing to you 3 here." Everyone was stunned. I also reminded Wendy, "Why aren't you apologizing to these gentlemen with me? Look at how many unnecessary misunderstandings we've caused by staying late at school." The fat one among the 3 said to the other 2, "Is this guy for real? What kind of normal person would say something like that at a time like this?" It's hard to punch a smiling face, and I knew that Frank was actually after Wendy. These 3 lackeys wouldn't dare to actually molest her, so they had no means to truly threaten me. These 3 intended for me to get angry so they could beat me up, then make me bark like a dog, humiliate me, and make Wendy think I was a coward, so she'd fall for the strong Frank instead. Why bother with all that? I couldn't wait for those 2 to get together. So I coughed and said, "Did Mr. Wilson send you here? But I don't believe that. Even though you're Frank's underlings, Mr. Wilson is a man of honor who cares for his classmates. He wouldn't do such a thing. Frank, please come save us." Seeing that my voice was getting louder and louder, Frank quickly came out, scolded these 3, and comforted Wendy. "Mr. Wilson, thank you for coming out in time. If you hadn't shown up, Wendy and I would have lost our virtue." Wendy, hearing this, was both angry and furious. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Frank, seeing me so cowardly, completely different from the person in the internet cafe the other day, was a bit unsure what to do, but he still hypocritically exchanged pleasantries with me before cursing and leaving with his lackeys. As Wendy was leaving, she asked, "Why didn't you protect me?" "Ah, women. In my past life, I barked like a dog to protect you. In the end, you looked down on me. In this life, I don't protect you and make you apologize. In the end, you still look down on me. By this calculation, I barked like a dog for nothing in my past life." I said righteously, "Wendy, dear, Don't you understand the principle of avoiding unnecessary trouble? If I had protected you, wouldn't we both be in trouble? Peace is precious. Now we're both fine, isn't that great? Frank is really a man of his word. If I were a girl, I'd definitely fall for him. Wendy gave me a dirty look and walked away quickly. After getting home, I couldn't help but laugh when I thought about what had just happened. It's almost time for the mayor's inspection visit. Frank, oh Frank, you better not disappoint me. Saying this, I called a reporter named Yvonne Bailey. Sister Yvonne, this is Ike, the one who reported the campus bullying incident to you last week. Yes, what I told you about is about to happen. It'll make a great news story. It's sure to boost your ratings. Fortunately, although the timeline was jumbled, Frank Wilson's thought process remained unchanged. He still wanted to continue testing and humiliating me. So the scene of making me take off my school uniform played out again. I kept glancing at my watch while arguing with Frank. What's wrong? Are you deaf when I tell you to take off your uniform? I checked the time, it was almost right. Looking into the distance, I could see the mayor's official car about to cross the road. Frank, I can give you my uniform, but could I make a tiny request? I asked timidly. Frank seemed pleased with my attitude and took a drag on his cigarette. What is it? I'd like to sleep with your mum. I uttered these words with utmost sincerity. The whole place went silent for 3 seconds. Then Frank flew into a rage, grabbing a folding chair from the nearby snack bar to hit me. I ran, shouting all the way, "Bullying! The deputy mayor's son is bullying me at school. I have no way out. Just let me die." As I said this, I ran towards the mayor's car, but was immediately stopped by Jeffrey Carter, who had been lurking nearby for a long time. "What are you doing? Even though the deputy mayor's son bullies you every day, scalds you with boiling water, and sexually harasses you, nothing is more important than your life." Frank cursed at Jeffrey from the side. "Stop spouting nonsense, you bastard. When did I ever sexually harass him?" At this moment, Mayor Nicholas Wilkinson got out of the car with a grim face. "Are you Edmund Wilson's son?" Jeffrey added from the side. "Stepson." Mayor Wilkinson ignored Jeffrey and scolded Frank. "You're from an official's family, yet you're openly bullying others at school? This doesn't just affect your family if it gets out. The credibility of the entire government department will be ruined by scum like you." Just then, Yvonne Bailey rushed over with her camera crew. "Mayor Wilkinson, we've long received information that the deputy mayor's son has been bullying others at school. We've recorded everything that just happened and are planning to air it on the evening news tonight." Mayor Wilkinson's face turned ashen. "That's your business, it has nothing to do with me. If you want to expose it, go ahead. I'll definitely deal with this issue seriously." When I heard "deal with seriously," I knew the matter was almost settled, because if there were no media reporters around, Frank's stepfather might still have had a glimmer of hope. But once this incident was brought to light, apart from life-or-death interests, no one would protect him. Judging from Mayor Wilkinson's attitude towards Frank, it was obvious that Frank's stepfather and the mayor were not of one mind. Frank had always been arrogant, but seeing the mayor angrily reprimanding him and saying he would seriously deal with his stepfather, he immediately softened. "Mayor, I was just joking around." I cut him off directly. "Mayor Wilkinson, Frank poured hot water on me a few days ago. I even took photos, look." I handed the photos I had specially taken earlier to the mayor. Seeing that I even had photos on hand, Frank immediately understood that this was actually a long-planned scheme. But he dared not say anything more at this point. As this incident made the news, Mayor Wilkinson, in order to distance himself from Deputy Mayor Wilson, ordered relevant departments to conduct a thorough investigation of his family, calling for a sweeping anti-corruption and anti-bullying campaign. As a result, Frank was ordered to be expelled, and during the investigation, it was discovered that his stepfather had unclear dealings in a district construction project fund, leading to his immediate suspension. On the day Frank left school, I stood at the school gate to see him off, with a slight smile. From Frank's venomous gaze, I could tell he wanted revenge. But did Frank understand why I was smiling? I smiled not because I had succeeded, but to tell him, this was just the beginning. After that, Frank Wilson's revenge plan began. He always thought Wendy Green was the person I cared about most. Plus, he had always fancied Wendy himself. So, he successfully seduced her once again. I didn't really play much of a role in this. My biggest contribution was that I stopped considering Wendy's feelings. In the past, whenever she was unhappy, I would always listen to her troubles. When she was on her period, I would buy her hot milk. If she liked a gift, I would save up to buy it for her. Now, I would only talk to her if I felt like it and walk away whenever I didn't. I realized how liberating it was to not have to care about someone's feelings. Meanwhile, Frank would pick her up on his motorcycle outside the school gates. That bike must have cost at least 10 grand. Even though his dad had been suspended from work, it seemed they still had some money left, certainly more than most people. Every time I saw him picking up Wendy, I would shout at her angrily, telling her not to hang out with someone like him. I knew this would only make Wendy resent me more. I also often spread childish rumors, saying Frank had killed someone, that he was a big drug lord, and even that he was a Japanese spy. People are like that. When you tell some obvious lies, once they're exposed, the other person will feel completely opposed to you. If you tell a fool that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3, but 2,500, when the fool doesn't believe the 2,500 answer, they'll assume 3 must be correct. Wendy was just a naive romantic who didn't understand these things. Finally, she said what I most wanted to hear. You don't need to control everything I do. And so, between playing around and studying, I finished my year 12 with 11th place in the class exams. When the final exam results came out, I was playing video games at home. My mom came back from the parent-teacher meeting looking very upset. She asked me very seriously, "Ike, what's going on with your studies? How did you end up like this?" Without even turning my head, I replied, "Didn't I get above average? What more do you want? Perfection leads to destruction." My mom was completely enraged. She spun my chair around and shouted at me, "I work hard every day at the kebab shop just so you can go to a good university and earn big money in the future, not end up like your dad. And now you talk to me like this." I smiled, knowing it was time. "You won't need to work at the kebab shop anymore. Go look in the jewelry box behind the bookshelf. I sold all your jewelry." My mom couldn't believe it, but seeing I wasn't joking at all, she went to check. When she opened it, she found the box was empty. She went into a frenzy, cursing at me. "Ike Baker, how could you learn to steal? Are you trying to anger me to death? Because I multiplied your money by 500 times. That's right. The day before, I had sold all the cryptocurrency, and the money was now in my mom's bank account. So I ignored my mom's outburst and forcefully pulled her downstairs to the ATM. I inserted the card and entered the PIN. When an 8-digit figure appeared on the ATM screen, my mom was stunned. I took out the card and patted her shoulder. "Let's go upstairs and talk." After going upstairs, I explained to my mom how I had made a fortune trading cryptocurrencies. My mom, being just an ordinary working-class woman, couldn't grasp the concept of cryptocurrencies. In fact, it would be another 2 or 3 years before most people became aware of them. "Now that you have all this money, what do you plan to do with it?" My mom suddenly sounded weak and powerless. I knew this was because she had lost control over the son she had raised single-handedly. When people lose control, they become fearful. "Mom, 2 million pounds of this is for you, as a token of my filial piety. I'll keep the other 500,000 for my own pursuits. From now on, I won't be following your instructions anymore. And please don't give me any advice. I don't need it." I knew my words were harsh, but I had been holding them back for a long time. My mom always had my best interests at heart, but good intentions don't always guarantee good results. In fact, it was her misguided parenting that had made my previous life so miserable. As expected, my mom became angry when she heard this. "How dare you speak to me like that? You're my flesh and blood. Oh, so you've made some money gambling on stocks or whatever, and now you think you're too good for your own mother." I stared at her coldly as she ranted. not saying a word. After she finished, I stood up and picked up a fruit knife from the table. Mom, I'm your son, but I haven't been happy for years. You don't understand me at all or know what kind of hardships I've endured. We've both suffered. So here's the deal. If you don't agree, I'll give you all the money right now and cut ties with you completely. £2.5 million. Enough for you to set me up as an executive, which I could never earn in a lifetime. Consider it repayment for raising me. Or you can listen to me, and from now on, I'll be in charge of this household. Don't ask why. Or, I handed the fruit knife to my mum. You can stab me to death right now. At least for that last second before you kill me, you'll still have an obedient son. I said all of this with a stone-cold expression, devoid of any warmth. My mum's hand trembled, and the fruit knife fell to the floor. Seeing her fear, I pressed on, picking up the knife. Or should I stab myself? My mum completely broke down, quickly snatching the knife and throwing it far away. Son, all of Mum's money is yours. Just don't leave Mum, all right? I won't say anything anymore. Please don't scare me like that. Okay? I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. I was satisfied because after years of being oppressed and controlled by my mum, I finally saw her in a vulnerable position, pleading with me. I was sad because I seemed to have lost all the genuine emotions I had in my previous life. Even with my own mother, I had to resort to manipulation, knowing her greatest fear and using it against her. Mom, I know this isn't right, but your son has no choice. In this day and age, good people don't get anywhere, I said silently to myself. This is the tragedy of overbearing parents in dysfunctional families. Because parents sometimes have limited perspectives. They make many wrong judgments that affect their children. I thought if it weren't for this misguided upbringing, my previous life wouldn't have been so tragic. In fact, it wasn't just about Frank Wilson and Wendy Green being such awful people. If my mum's parenting style had remained the same, even if I hadn't encountered Frank, I would have met someone else just as bad. The original sin of being a swat, the pathology lies in the immature, but the root cause is in family education. Back in my room, I carefully considered my next move. It was almost time for Frank Wilson and Wendy Green's first breakup. A few days later, Wendy indeed called me. As expected, she was pregnant. At this time, Frank's mother was planning to emigrate with him. The so-called emigration was actually an attempt to transfer the family's money abroad before Frank's stepfather's case was settled. When Wendy told Frank about her pregnancy, it once again enraged him. He believed Wendy was deliberately causing trouble to hold him back. So he beat Wendy even more severely than the last time. When Wendy asked for my help this time, she actually didn't have much hope. After all, in this life, Wendy and I had already fallen out quite badly. So she was only hoping to borrow some money from me, as she probably didn't have enough for an abortion. But I generously offered to accompany her. Wendy was surprised and touched. On the way to the hospital, I chatted with her casually, saying a lot of paternal and cheesy things. Don't you feel like you've let your parents down by getting pregnant before marriage with Frank? Wendy, I advise you to turn back from this path soon. You're only 16, you still have a bright future ahead. That bastard Frank, I won't let him get away with this. Wendy, don't worry. If we study hard, we'll surely have opportunities in the future. As we were leaving, I took the test results and surgery forms with me. Wendy said to throw them away, but I objected. In case you feel unwell in the coming days and need to go back to the hospital, this is proof. Just keep it safe. When I dropped her home, her family wasn't back from work yet. I went in and sat for a while, then used the toilet. I quietly slipped the abortion surgery form with her name and age, which I had kept on me, into Wendy's parents' bedroom. Back home, I felt relieved. Mum saw how happy I was and came over to ask, "Son, I'm thinking of buying a new house for our family. What do you think?" I waved my hand. "I've told you, don't worry about me. The money I give you to take care of yourself, I don't care how you spend it. Just don't get scammed. It's good to get a new house, you'll be more comfortable. We can rent out this one." This was exactly what my mum wanted to hear. Although she had been subjected to my manipulation these past few days, She was actually in a much better mood than before and wasn't as strict as she used to be. She still encouraged me to study hard, but only to a certain extent. I'm thinking we could buy a house near a good school district, so in the future you and Wendy. Just as she was saying this, someone started banging on the door. When we opened it, to our surprise, Wendy's parents were standing there furiously, with Wendy behind them. Mrs. Baker, what's the meaning of this? Wendy's dad threw the surgery form at my mum's hands. Mrs. Baker, we've always been close. The kids grew up together, and I've even joked about becoming in-laws when I've had a few drinks. But now, at just 16 years old, having an abortion. You need to explain this, or our families will have serious issues. My mum was stunned when she heard this, but I immediately understood what had happened. Oh, Wendy Green, you really know how to pull the wool over my eyes. I left your abortion papers in your dad's bedroom, hoping he'd find out and give you a good thrashing. I just wanted to stir up some trouble in your family. But you went and pinned the whole thing on me, leaving me with no way to defend myself. Too bad for you. I'm not one to be trifled with. So I let out a deep, sorrowful sigh. Mr. and Mrs. Green, I understand your anger, but the child truly isn't mine. Sister-in-law, this is what your son is saying. He did such a heartless thing and won't even admit it. Wendy's father nearly struck me, but Wendy held him back. Without hesitation, I took out my phone and played a recording. Don't you feel guilty towards your parents for getting pregnant with Frank Wilson before marriage? Wendy, I urge you to come to your senses. You're only 16, you still have a bright future ahead. That bastard Frank, I won't let him get away with this. Wendy, don't worry. If we study hard, we'll have our chance in the future. Everyone in the room, including Wendy, was stunned. Mr. and Mrs. Green, I didn't want to say this, but I can't let you misunderstand me. I'm not a bad kid. The reason I recorded this was as a wake-up call. I wanted to record it to show Wendy what a scoundrel Frank is. I never expected her to say such things about me. Wendy's father turned red with rage. He slapped Wendy twice across the face, the sound echoing through the room. My mum and Wendy's mum tried to intervene, but Mr. Green was still furious. He kicked Wendy, sending her sprawling. She ran off crying. I quickly chased after her. When I caught up, I tried to console her. Wendy, did I do something wrong? Maybe I love you too much. Should I not have played the recording for your parents? Wendy looked at me, unsure if I was genuinely clueless or just pretending. She was confused, but the anger from her parents' beating was now directed at me. I could tell she thought I was an idiot, but also someone who could cleverly avoid risks. I pressed on. Wendy, even though you slept with that lowlife, even though you're so misguided, even though you're damaged goods now, even though you aborted the baby, even though you tried to blame me, none of that matters as much as my love for you. Wendy, I love you. Wendy completely broke down. She cursed me for being mental and ran off crying. In the darkness, I struggled to hold back my laughter as I shouted loud enough for her to hear. Why? Why are you leaving me? What did I do wrong? Is it a crime to love someone? Once Wendy was out of sight, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I went to the corner shop to buy a pack of cigarettes. Taking a drag, I sat on a park bench and thought, this isn't over yet. I called Jeffrey Carter. Did you find the person I asked for? Give him £5,000 when it's done. Jeffrey replied, don't worry, I've got everything sorted. It'll be done in the next few days. Good. I smoked and gazed into the night, thinking of Frank's face. Want to emigrate? I won't let you off that easily. I'll make sure you die right here in the UK. Thanks to my careful guidance, Jeffrey Carter has recently had a complete change of heart. He's evolved from occasionally skipping classes and copying homework in his previous life to spending every night at the pub. This isn't me leading him astray. In his previous life, he attended a polytechnic, ended up working as a graphic designer, constantly berated by his boss, and earning only £1,500 a month. I've promised him that right now, I can pay him £1,500 a month. It's £1,500 now, but when others are at university, you'll be my bodyguard and driver, and I'll pay you £15,000 a month. I told Jeffrey. I meant every word. Jeffrey truly considers me a good mate, and now that I've made it in this life, I can't let my friend down. Jeffrey believed me completely. It's not because he's stupid. While the £15,000 is just a pipe dream, he's actually received the £1,500, which is quite a sum for a sixth form student. At the same time, I spent £10,000 to buy a domain name that seems unremarkable now. I got it from a website developer. I lied to him, saying the initials of this website name happen to be the same as my girlfriend's initials. But I'm just a student without much money. I saved £10,000 by being frugal, hoping to buy this as a birthday gift for my girlfriend, to give her a surprise. He agreed to sell. I know that in 6 months, an e-commerce company with the same name will be officially established, and in my previous life, this domain name would be sold for £2.5 million. With this, plus my memories of the World Cup from my previous life, it won't be a problem to amass total assets of over £50 million, all through speculation. This time, as Frank Wilson is about to leave, Jeffrey, who's been hanging around pubs and nightclubs every day, has made some progress. Following my instructions, he gave £5,000 to a drug-using friend of Frank's, who agreed to go home with Frank tonight, and then we'd call the police to report them at any time. I can't believe it. £5,000, and he's willing to risk a criminal record and 7 days in custody. I can't believe someone would do this. Jeffrey found it unbelievable. I laughed heartily. I'm giving £5,000 because I want this to go smoothly. These people have no loyalty. They'd be thrilled to do it for £500. Sure enough, on the evening of the second day after I instructed Jeffrey Carter about this matter, the local police received a tip-off from concerned citizens that someone was using ketamine in a posh estate. The person was administratively detained for 7 days. At the same time, Frank Wilson, who allowed others to use drugs on his premises, was sentenced to 1 year in prison for the crime of harboring drug users. Frank was completely out of commission for this year. His and his mother's well-laid plans to escape abroad were thoroughly ruined. When I received the news, I laughed out loud, cracked open a can of beer, and said to Jeffrey, I reckon I've done my bit in the fight against corruption. Jeffrey also had a can, but he was quite perplexed. Ike, where on earth did you learn these nasty tricks? It's too cruel. Not long after, Frank's stepfather was also sentenced to 8 years in prison for abuse of power and corruption. Only his mother managed to transfer some assets and left the country to lay low. During this year, although I didn't make much progress in my studies, I did make money. The e-commerce company successfully went public, and they purchased the domain name from me. I profited £7 million from this deal. Initially, I thought I'd quote a high price to avoid scaring them off, so I started high, ready to negotiate down. To my surprise, they agreed immediately. Big companies for you. Now I have nearly £10 million in assets, so I need to do something with it. So I started a small media company. Whenever a new platform or app was just starting up, I'd hire people to create accounts on it. Of course, this wasn't just about making money, it was also about cultivating my own media influence. After half a year, having invested £300,000 across various platforms and nurtured some big internet celebrities from scratch, my company now manages over 20 major influencers. Academically, I wasn't doing well. Relying on memories from my previous life and using a bit of cunning, I only got into a third-rate university, quite a drop from my previous achievements. After the incident where her parents discovered her abortion, Wendy Green's father kept a very close eye on her, not letting her go out unnecessarily. As a result, she studied very hard and actually got better A-level results than me. It's bloody unfair. However, I still kept in touch with Wendy, occasionally buying her jewelry, spending £500 or £800 at a time, pretending to care about her. This left Wendy unsure whether I truly loved her or was just playing with her, so she could only engage with me in a half-hearted manner. This wasn't because I liked her. I was waiting for Frank to get out of prison so I could personally hand Wendy over to him. Sure enough, one time when I deliberately arranged to meet Wendy, I saw Frank, fresh out of prison, behind us. He came out of prison with a different hairstyle, looking thinner. his eyes clearly revealing his resentment. I knew why he hated me so much, because I had already spread the word through Jeffrey, letting Frank know that I was the one who had him sent to prison back then. Jeffrey had built up quite a network in the criminal underworld over the past year. So as soon as there was news about Frank, he immediately informed me. I even knew where he was living. So it wasn't that he accidentally encountered me. It was me who arranged for him to accidentally encounter us. More importantly, I also knew that he couldn't leave the country through regular channels now, so he was planning to smuggle himself out, heading to Canada to reunite with his mother. And since Frank was planning to leave illegally, he naturally wanted to kill the person who had ruined his life before he left. Unfortunately for him, we were in a busy area, so Frank didn't dare do anything to me. He just glared at me and said, "I won't let you off." I squeezed Wendy's hand, then smiled at Frank. "I'll be waiting." Ever since I ran into Frank Wilson again, I became paranoid and started picking fights with Wendy Green over trivial matters. Wendy still had lingering feelings for Frank, so this only made her hate me more and miss Frank even more. I went as far as paying someone to monitor Wendy's phone. Sure enough, I discovered that within a month after this, Wendy and Frank had started an affair. The two of them had it all planned out. They were going to move to Canada to be with his mother. Frank swore that his mum had taken at least £30 million in assets with her, which would be more than enough for them to live a very comfortable life. Although I couldn't understand why Wendy's intelligence seemed so low, certainly made things very convenient for me. Perhaps this was true love. Of course, it could also be about the money, because I had never told Wendy that I now had at least £10 million in cash. But in Frank and Wendy's conversations, I also saw Frank tell her that before they left, he would personally kill me to settle the score. At first, Wendy tried to dissuade him several times without success. I deliberately picked a couple more fights, making Wendy dislike me even more. Finally, Wendy agreed to Frank's request. That day, Wendy led me to a dark alley. By this point, I had already seen Frank's shadow behind me. I didn't panic at all, but instead turned around casually to greet Frank. "Hello." Frank and Wendy were both stunned. Wendy was only doing this because she was so desperate to leave the country with Frank. And while Frank wanted to kill me, seeing me so calm made him the nervous one instead. I completely ignored him and said to Wendy, "Wendy, thank you. You know I've always hated Frank, so you brought him here. Let him attack me so I'll have a legitimate reason to kill him. This way it'll count as self-defense, and he'll die for nothing. As expected of you." With that, I kissed Wendy, completely ignoring Frank's existence. Frank flew into a rage, cursing at Wendy. "You damn! You tricked me?" Wendy was at a loss for words. At this moment, I said, "I'm telling you, you can hurt me however you want, but you absolutely cannot hurt Wendy. She's more important to me than my own life." Frank now felt betrayed, his anger intensifying. He immediately pulled out a sharp knife to stab me. I grabbed Wendy's hand and hid behind her. Wendy's chest collided right with the tip of his knife. When Frank saw that he had stabbed Wendy, he was momentarily stunned, but remembering what I had just said, he grinned viciously. "You don't want Wendy to die? I'll damning stab her to death." With that, he stabbed Wendy 3 more times. Blood gushing from her mouth, Wendy said to Frank, I didn't." I took the opportunity to move behind Frank, kicking the back of his knee and snatching the knife. I then stabbed him in the groin. The pain in his groin was so intense that Frank let out a scream and passed out. Wendy was bleeding profusely. I glanced at the security camera on the electric pole in the alley and deliberately threw myself dramatically onto Wendy, wailing loudly. But the camera couldn't pick up my voice, it could only see my back. My face, which was turned towards Wendy, was smiling at her. I gripped Wendy's hand and said, "You whore, I had countless chances to kill you, but I didn't, because I was waiting for this moment. I wanted to use your lover's hand to have him stab you to death." Looking at Wendy's trembling and desperate expression, I said gently, "Rest in peace." Wendy breathed her last. After the incident, the police arrived. The CCTV footage showed that I had hidden behind Wendy Green, which was clearly a reflexive action to avoid danger in the heat of the moment. Frank Wilson was sentenced to 20 years in prison for attempted murder. Additionally, he suffered severe injuries to his genitals, leaving him unable to father children in the future. However, the court considered that I had acted in self-defense, as I had only stabbed once out of urgent necessity. At the same time, my popular social media accounts spoke out, portraying this as a crazed act of revenge by a fallen politician's son against a working-class student. Suddenly, I found myself hailed as a hero for fighting back. Although Frank Wilson repeatedly claimed at the police station that this was a conspiracy between Wendy and me, there was no evidence to support his accusations. The case was quickly concluded. On the evening I left the police station, Jeffrey Carter came to pick me up. He said, "Ike, that was too risky. We had 10 men waiting on the next street, terrified that you might not be able to overpower Frank and end up getting stabbed yourself." I replied, "I've practiced this for so long, it's second nature now." "How long have you been practicing?" I calculated from the first time I met Frank in my previous life, up until my death at Wendy's hands. 10 years. Jeffrey muttered, "Learning to stab people since you were 8, you're ruthless." I laughed heartily, lit a cigarette and said, "Every day from now on will be good. You've done well with this. Next year, during the World Cup, I'll help you make a fortune." As we talked, we arrived at the front of a restaurant. I remembered dining there with Wendy in my previous life. I paused by the mirror next to the restaurant entrance, observing my reflection. I realized I had become the very image of that person in the mirror from before. For a moment, I reflected on my experiences over the past 3 years. I had ensured Wendy died at the hands of her lover, unable to rest in peace, turned Frank into a eunuch, destined to spend the rest of his life in prison, transformed Jeffrey into a true thug, made my mother submissive in my presence, and left Wendy's parents as lonely elderly people. Those who had hurt me had received their comeuppance, but were the people whose fates I had altered truly happy? I stared at that face filled with malice, unsure how to answer.